Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Moksha Canada Foundation's fourth annual Diversity Festival. This year, it is a virtual festival. It's our second virtual festival where we were able to bring it online last year. Thank you for joining us again. We're just excited to have a wonderful group of panelists. This is our second panel discussion this week, and we're going to be talking about post-COVID and what that's going to look like and how we address things moving forward, whether it be in the healthcare system and our communities. I've got some great guests. So again, my name is Lynn McEntee. I'm the moderator for Moksha Canada Foundation. Mostly I want to thank Sunil Chen, who is the founder of Moksha Canada. And Moksha Canada is a nonprofit organization, which really is creating programs and platforms for people to engage and connect in their communities to bring change moving forward and step outside the box. So thank you for joining us today. We are here for a virtual panel discussion. As I mentioned, we are overcoming adversity, rebuilding post-COVID. In particular, Moksha Canada Foundation is proud to shine light on the cultural diversity. And this year, our Safer, Inclusive, Resilient Canada is our theme. So we really want to keep that in mind moving forward. We have a variety of guests who will share their opinions as a citizen, as a professional, and whichever the conversation, wherever it takes us. So please join us for that. And firstly, I'd like to start off with Sarah. And Sarah, thank you for going first. I really appreciate that. So Sarah Bowers-Peter, and I'll give you a little bio about Sarah before we enter into our conversation. Sarah Bowers-Peter is the program coordinator for Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington since 2014. She sits on the Ontario Association of Crime Stoppers Board of Directors and has been appointed to the Canadian Crime Stoppers Association as the Communications Chair. In 2020, she was named Paul D. Boudreau Coordinator of the Year by Crime Stoppers International. Sarah also serves on Safety Communities, Wellington County, Wellington Guelph Drug Safety, and Guelph, oh, pardon me, that's a long one, Wellington Action Committee on Sexual Assault and Domestic Violence. It is a pleasure to have Sarah join us. We've spoken with Sarah before in some of our other panels, and we're just thrilled to have you here today, Sarah. So thank you for joining our conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Sarah, I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about your work and how you've noticed any changes sort of during COVID and where you sort of see your organization moving forward post-COVID and how things may look a little bit differently.
Sure. I'll just explain a little bit how Crime Stoppers works to fully explain and articulate where that pivot happened for us. So Crime Stoppers is a not-for-profit organization, and we consider ourselves the middleman. We are not a police organization. We are an organization of volunteers and in some cases staff that are taking tips and information from the public. Those individuals are anonymous and confidential when they give us that information. We sanitize it and then forward it to either police or other investigative agencies, depending on the nature of the information. There's no way for a tipster to be identified, and we don't want them to be identified. And also, if your information leads to an arrest, you could be eligible for a cash reward of up to $2,000. So you're right, Lynn, there definitely was a shift for Crime Stoppers organizations, I dare say across the country, when COVID hit, because organizations that were, looking at planning events and fundraising fundraising activities rather, were shut down with their revenue flow. And because of the nature of our business as a charity, we have to rely on donations and fundraising activities to pay our tipster rewards, to, in some programs to cover costs such as rent for office space, run an office, the costs that are related to that. So depending on how stable the program was going into the pandemic, really determined how they were able to navigate it. In Guelph Wellington, we were very fortunate. We had a very strong program. Our board of directors were very aggressive in making sure that we were, in a good position with our finances, with our engagement with the community, and therefore we were, well positioned, as I say, to hit this head on. The struggle we found since is the fact that our fundraising, of course, has not been able to resume to the levels that it normally would have. And yet the program is still being used, thankfully. And our rewards are higher this year than they have been the last 2 years. And we're only in August. So we've already exceeded our reward approvals for this year. Now, the thing we're really most proud of and brag about quite a bit, to be frank, is the fact that we didn't miss a day of taking tips. No program did. everyone was able to continue taking tips, whether it was, right from the toll-free number of 1-800-222-TIPS, or the various websites that have the online tip-taking process. So we were already ready for this transition from less in-person engagement, because of course you can't be in person to provide a tip. We were already distanced from our tipsters in that regard. So it didn't impact us as far as we didn't get tips anymore, or we weren't able to take tips. And a lot of programs saw either the same level of tips that we'd had years previous, or a slight increase, because honestly, people had time on their hands and were able to think of Crime Stoppers and come forward and provide that information. So yeah, there definitely has been impact. And we're hearing now that we're in year 2, that there are some programs that are really starting to feel the pinch, and from a financial standpoint, really need that support. And I would take that opportunity to encourage our viewers that if you have a local Crime Stoppers program and you see that they are having a fundraiser, please support them, or consider making a direct donation, because all programs are able to do that and offer tax receipts because of their charitable status. It provides such an impactful service, and whether it's, a rural or an urban setting, it's there to provide a service to the community.
That's awesome. Thank you, sir. Why don't we have introduce our other guests? Just a quick introduction, if you don't mind, please, and thank you. We have James Gordon, who is here. He's a musician who's joining us today, but he's also a city councillor for Guelph, and he's jumping into the conversation shortly as we get a moment to speak to him. But for anybody who's joining us for live viewing, we have James Gordon in the background, and also Jim Karagianis, who is also joining us as well as a guest speaker. But we did want to actually give Sarah another opportunity to continue to speak. And if anybody had any questions or any thoughts surrounding what Crime Stoppers in particular and the work that she's doing and our communities moving forward. Any of our other guest panelists?
Hi, Sarah, I just got a question for you. There used to be signs in communities that used to say Crime Stoppers, but in some places like in Toronto, they don't seem to be going up anymore. And the city is not engaged. Is there something that you guys can do to bring that program back in the municipalities?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. Each program runs individually. So think of it kind of like a franchise where we have the overall mandate, but we have a little more latitude in that we can set our own priorities. Now, in Guelph Wellington, we do have a number of road signs that are up in the community. And if you come to our area, you would see that basically every entrance to the city of Guelph and the county of Wellington has some kind of road sign. And you're absolutely correct, Jim, that it's a great way of connecting with those who are on the road. And so many of us are still traveling. So it's a great way to get the message out there. A lot of times those are very costly. So it's an opportunity to partner with maybe, a sponsor or a corporation that's looking to partner with the Crime Stoppers brand. And that would be really the only suggestion I could make, is that if a local program doesn't have an active road sign campaign, it's probably because of the cost or the permissions that they're required to have to post those signs. I know we have to engage, whether it's the county of Wellington or the city of Guelph, to get permission. We can't just go and put them wherever we want. And, you referenced Toronto. I dare say there's probably a lot of restrictions in place as to where a road sign can be placed. And that's where we partner with our corporate, agencies and say, hey, if there's a company that would be okay with us putting it on the side of their building, or on a parking lot, that type of thing. It's a great opportunity for awareness and engagement that way.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. So in terms of your colleagues and post-COVID and sort of feeling isolation, have you found that with your colleagues that they're feeling a sense of isolation during this time period and the work that they're doing, and with the lack of connection to the community?
Well, I think like a lot of people, like I'm presently, I call it the field office, the Crime Stoppers field office. I am working from my home. For us, that's going to be a permanent change. We have gone from an in-office setting to an at-home setting. For me, it's not a problem. I'm okay with it because I get lots of interaction, just like I am today with you good folks. But for others, it is a problem because there's not that same connectivity. However, we are planning fundraisers for this fall. We have shredding events that are planned, And that is where we're able to get together as an organization. So both the staff and our board of directors to be able to connect with the members of the public. And to go back a year ago when we had a shredding event, we didn't know how it was going to go. This was really our first public event last September. And we were afraid that no one was going to come, but people would not be comfortable. And we had a record-setting year of participants and raised so much money. Again, I think people had time on their hands and were able to organize their documents, so they were preventing the chance of being a victim of identity theft. But the comments we were getting from people in the lineup of cars to get their documents shredded was, we're just so glad to see you guys and to be out and doing something. And you'd think that we were having like a gala, but they were just so excited to be engaged with us in a community endeavor. And I think there's still an appetite for that. But I do hear from my colleagues, to answer your question, Lynn, I do hear from colleagues where they say, this is harder now, and there are challenges for sure. So I think the answer to that is, is it something that we can adapt back to, a hybrid model to have some in office and some public engagement? Or do people, like myself that are going to be working from home and definitely say, I can make this work too? It's a very interesting time to be in the workforce, that's for sure.
No, absolutely. No, I love the way you said
Sarah.
that.
Hi, Sarah. This is Sharif Sabawi, MPP Sharif Sabawi from Mississauga area in Mills.
Hi.
And I would like to thank you very much for the inspiring words you said, but I want to ask you actually a few questions and maybe raise a few points here. With the gun violence and gang violence going on, and every day now we hear about stabbing, shooting, gangs. Yesterday there was like two gangs who were fighting in the mall. So I think there's an increasing need to add more involvement from the people, the standard people, because we know that the police is not going to be able to scale that fast. And no matter what amount of money we're going to put into this, it's not going to be enough. And so I think that we need to increase the involvement or increase the feel from the publics that they have to be actively participating in a way to, adding more eyes, more surveillance, more reporting, more intelligence in the ages will definitely help in getting more information to the core kind of thing. So I hope that you guys have thought about some strategy to make use of this bad news in the streets to recruit more people who feel that they need to do something about violence in their neighborhoods. I think in Mississauga we didn't have Crime Stoppers. We had the Neighborhood Watch, which maybe is the same thing, or close, maybe not exactly, but close. And I was talking to the Peel Police about the same thing. How can we encourage people like Neighborhood Watch or Crime Stoppers? How can we enable them in a way to get more people involvement, because we need it to be able to get the information we need to stop some of those crimes. And instead of having to go on CP24 saying, anybody have information, please call this number. That's one thing. The second thing, going virtually or going on the online or going work from home or remotely, I think it's a very good opportunity because lots of people have now more time in hand staying home. And for the first time, they start watching what's going on around in the neighborhood. They start noticing people jumping fences or people dropping garbage somewhere or people digging in here or there. Like there is more time in hand. So I think we should maybe, again, that's a positive thing we can make use of to recruit more people into being active, not just to monitor something and keep it for themselves versus then calling somebody and saying, hey, I'm noticing this pattern happening, that's another thing. The third thing, which is again, part of the virtualization, I think there's a very good opportunity now to have social media kicking in. You need to get more social media, people awareness, reaching out to people, especially that the cost for that is very, very, very cheap. Like you can reach out to 10,000 people for $20, which is nothing comparing to getting somebody on the phone and calling people and trying to sell them the idea of the organization or asking for donation. That's another thing, which again, like another thing you can look into is participating in big festivities and events, especially that is even theater now. Some theaters become doing live broadcast on the internet as well, because there is no big gathering numbers. So participating in that could be very easy and cheaper still, and get your banner in there in front of thousands of people who are participating in the event, and they're going to be watching it afterward offline on YouTube. So your brand or your banner could be there for, again, fractions of the cost. One final item. I'm sorry, I'm just like I was waiting for you to speak, because I have actually agenda into this this topic specifically. I am applying for the CRTC to push a 3 digits, standardized 3 digits for the non-emergency 911. So instead of calling 911 for something which is not emergency, you call 922, for example. And just by rerouting the calls, which is not 911 in nature, enable 911 to do a better job into responding, because I got the statistics from 3 regions, police forces, and between 48% to 55% of the calls are non-911 in nature. So if you're buying 911 expensive emergency line with zero blocking for a call which is not 911 is waste of money and waste of resources. So just to imagine, if 911 get a call which is not 911, it take him between 3 to 5 minutes to reroute it to the non-emergency. So I occupied a very high trained 911 operator for 5 minutes. And then when it goes to the non-emergency, he will start from scratch. It's like, it's another department, another call, basically. So I wasted 5 minutes, multiply that by about 1.5 million call in Toronto region per year. You can imagine the amount of money wasted in that. So I'm applying for CRTC to get a 3 digits non-emergency. And that could also fall under your quadrant as well, in promoting the people to use the non-emergency number, because at the end of the day, this is the right thing to do, but people can't memorize the 10 digits. Number 2, they don't know what geographical area they fall in. Like, I know the 10 digits for Mississauga non-emergency number, but if I'm in Oakville, I can't remember anything but 911. So again, like, it's helping the people to do the right thing and choose to call another number. If I always remember 911 as emergency, it's easy for me to remember that 922 is a second priority. So this is another thing which I would like to get in contact with you, Sarah, because I would like to get some, I would say, some letter from you in talking about the emergency versus non-emergency calls, like 911 versus a non-emergency call in nature. How can the people differentiate between this and that? And that will help me in my application. So thank you very much. And I put my phone number, my email on the chat. Please send me your contacts. We'll get offline in touch and see how can we help each other.
That sounds great. Now, you covered a lot of territory in that, so I just want to go back and make sure I can cover everything. And if I miss anything, you let me know, okay?
Sure.
So first of all, you're absolutely right. And any kind of gun violence or knife violence, you know, for people in the GTA or anywhere in Ontario is tragic. And it's something that we don't want to see happen. And that's kind of our mission is helping all communities stay safe. That's actually our hashtag for the year. to be able to say to people that there was an opportunity for at least one other person to have reported that ahead of time to prevent a crime from happening is the crux of Crime Stoppers. Someone other than the criminal has information that can solve a crime, and no tip is too small. So even if someone were to say there's going to be something happen at that particular mall, would have been tremendously helpful to be able to pass along to police and security at that location. And we encourage people that they should always come forward with that information. Now, the next point, I believe, to be clear, we're not a police organization, but we do have Crime Stoppers locations throughout the GTA, and we encourage people to find their local program and get involved. The Ontario Association is a collective. We're not a governing body, we're more of an advisory body, but there are, I can think off the top, like York, Halton, Peel, Toronto itself, of course. So there's a number of programs that people can get involved with, whether it's volunteering or, as I mentioned before, financial support is always appreciated. But the backbone of Crime Stoppers is volunteerism. To increase awareness, I would encourage people. We've got the Ontario Association on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And that's a great way to find out what's happening with our local programs, because I'm the person responsible for those platforms, and I really feel strongly about promoting our local programs. But if someone were watching this were to say, I don't know how to get involved, check them out on social media. I can guarantee you that 90% of our programs have active social media accounts. And that's a really good way to find out the flavor of your local program and see what their priorities are. Some might be more interested in working away at drugs. If it's fentanyl or opiates and things like that, there's a lot of great initiatives out there. It could be human trafficking, yet another crime that we're seeing on the increase, or it could be something like illegal dumping, or just as we mentioned, identity theft. So you can find out what your local program is focusing in on. And we do have the Ontario website as well that has links to all of the programs. So if you're not sure what the name of your program is, you can go to OntarioCrimeStoppers.ca. Want to make sure I got it right, and it'll direct you. You can follow it through and find your local program. So I hope that, and as far as the 911, so we don't have a lot of say when it comes to the 911 end of things because we're not the police. But if there's something that we can have a dialogue about, by all means, I'm sure that we can have a conversation and see if there's a role for us or just to learn more about what you're trying to achieve, and we'd be happy to have that conversation.
Thank you.
Amazing. Wow. Thank you so much for taking the conversation there.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or input they'd like to mention for Sarah before we carry on? No.
I actually have a quick question. Thank you, Lynn, and Sarah. Thanks for what you've shared with us today. I'm gathering that most or all of your funding is through fundraising and volunteer efforts. Is that true?
Yes, in the case of each program, they have different structures. I'm going to use Guelph Wellington as an example. So the City of Guelph makes its contribution to the Guelph Police Services Board, and the Guelph Police Services Board makes a contribution to Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington. Those funds are used to provide a staff member that runs the office end of our engagement. And then I myself am an employee of Wellington County OPP, a civilian member. So I am their contribution. So that is, even though that's not like a direct financial contribution, there's obviously a cost offset there. We also do get support through the Ontario Association of Crime Stoppers for the after hours call center service, because obviously we can't have people sitting beside a phone, at each of our local programs. There's a centralized, dedicated Crime Stoppers call center, and we do get provincial funding toward that cost alone. So we don't get full-time coverage through the province of Ontario. It's only for after hours services for the programs within Ontario.
Great, thank you. The reason I ask is that one of the questions we were asked in advance was about the state and future of different service organizations. I don't know if you would qualify as one of those. It seems to me that your organization and so many others have become more vital during COVID because of their grassroots community connections. And we've all recognized the value of community more, I think, during COVID. So it would be logical to me as a politician to work towards making sure all those organizations and yours have sustainable funding that can allow them to ramp up the work that they do. And sometimes we talk about defunding police. I am always more interested in talking about refunding, finding new ways to support the organizations that can be supportive and work alongside our police services and other organizations too. So I'm going to be working on that, and I hope that you find ways to look for that as well.
Definitely, the mandate of any volunteer on our board of directors is fundraising. So whether that's a one-off event or a sustainable revenue stream, that is their purpose. And each local program's board of directors has that mandate. And if I could indulge myself for a moment, Lynn, James brings up a really great point. When we had that conversation about defunding police and the sensitivity between our communities, especially those of color, and our police partners, we've had a lot of learning happen throughout this pandemic, and it's been uncomfortable learning, it's been overdue learning, and it's ongoing. And the position, especially at my local program here in Guelph Wellington, is that we made an anti-racism statement. We put it out there that this was going to be our mandate moving forward, that we would not just look for opportunities to engage and have people involved in our organization that are representative of all communities in the city of Guelph and the county of Wellington, but we would also take this opportunity to educate ourselves. And I'm really proud of our board of directors, because they have taken this and instead of just saying it's a terrible thing, they've taken it one step farther. It's a terrible thing, and we want to do something about it. So we're presently doing training with regards to land acknowledgements. We're also engaging with Black community leaders and doing training of our board of directors to ensure that we understand that if a tipster were to call into us and was from a different experience than what we are having, that we are dealing with that information in an empathetic and understanding way, and also to reinforce the fact that this is really what Crime Stoppers is about. We have good relationships with our police partners, but we understand that not everyone does. And here is an organization that can step up and provide a service to all members of all communities, so that you don't have to deal directly with a police officer or have a cruiser in your driveway or go through a court process, which can be traumatizing for people. You're anonymous and the information is confidential. So you still have the outcome of keeping your community safe and doing the right thing, but you don't have to be front row and have to go through what could be a pretty painful experience for many members of our community. So I just wanted to, since James brought that up, I thought it might be a good opportunity, especially in this forum today.
Very much so. Thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate that. And that really is what Moksha Canada Foundation is about. It's bridging these conversations and bridging our resources, and we're learning and growing today. And I would encourage you to reach out to Sarah on social media. Sarah, if they wanted to get a hold of you somehow, how would they do that?
I'll give you my email. It's Sarah, okay. SARAH @ and then the acronym for my home program is CSGW.tips, TIP as in Papa, S as in Sam, and I can put that in the chat as well.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And of course, Moksha Canada Foundation, please reach out to us as well. Follow us on social media. We're here for resources and sharing knowledge in our communities, bridging gaps along the way. I'd like to take a moment, since you were talking about land acknowledgement, Sarah, to introduce our next guest, James Gordon, who's way up on a boat visiting with us today. And I'm just going to read a little bit of bio for James, give you an idea of who he is, what he's about, and then he's going to take a moment for land acknowledgement and carry on with our conversation today. Excuse me, I'll just get that together. All right. So James Gordon has had a long and successful career in the Canadian entertainment business as a solo singer-songwriter with the groundbreaking trio Tamarack. He's recorded at least 40 albums and has toured relentlessly around the world. He was a CBC radio songwriter in residence for Basic Black and Ontario morning programs. James is also a record producer, playwright, community activist, theater director, and currently has a part-time side hustle as a Guelph City Councillor. Please welcome James Gordon.
Thank you very much. And if you're looking for it's hard to do an ether land acknowledgement, and especially when I'm not on land right now. I'm on water, but right now I am on the territory of the Huron, Wendat, and some Mohawk here. It's treaty land. I think everyone represented here today is on treaty land, and it is my hope that we acknowledge the excellent and often ignored stewardship that Indigenous peoples have brought to this country. We have much to learn from them. And if we work hard towards truth and reconciliation, we will all be better for it. We will all have a shared look at how we can move past, as we're discussing today, move past COVID into something new.
And James, we issued you a question as a panelist for your participation today. Is there one of those that you wanted to speak to today?
Sure. Actually, I ignored something Sunil asked too. He wanted to know a little bit about our backgrounds. I have a very Canadian ancestry in that it's all over the map. It's a little bit of everything. My father's side of the family was Scottish. My mother's side, it was Métis and James Bay Cree. And so you can imagine I have great colonialist arguments with myself constantly as a result of that. But I think having those two backgrounds has been a valuable perspective for me. The question I wanted to look at is just around our main topic. I was going to say, in terms of accessibility, I deal with that a lot as a counselor, but I don't feel that I have the expertise that someone like a Sarah or Jim might have in finding ways to move forward. But I am positive that, again, just like the land acknowledgement, we will all be the better if we recognize that now is the time to move forward on our accessibility framework. And it's very much like climate change, which I'm very involved with. We see what we need. We see that there's a crisis around it, and yet we drag our heels until the very last moment to do anything about it at a government level, and that needs to change. But the question I want to explore musically today for you, I do wear two hats. They're strange hats to wear as a politician and as a songwriter is my other main occupation. I get asked with both of those tasks, when are things getting back to normal? And as one of the mandates of this discussion today, how can we move forward post-COVID? So I decided to wear both hats at the same time. My answer to when are we getting back to normal is a musical one. I'm going to sing it for you right now. If that's the right time for you, Lynn? We're not going back to normal. That's not what we need. Normal's driven by the religion of greed. Normal was racism, violence, and hate. Normal made poverty a permanent state. Normal was built on fear and dread. We're not going back to normal like oil. It is dead. We're moving up to awesome. That's where we need to be. Awesome's made from love and empathy. Awesome starts with equality. Awesome sounds like harmony. Awesome doesn't leave anybody behind. Moving up to awesome. Awesome is alive. Normal didn't care. Normal wasn't fair. Normal only works if you're a billionaire. Normal was children locked up in a cage. Normal never paid a living wage. Normal went to never got a hand. We're not going back to normal like oil. It is dead. We're moving up to awesome. It's where we need to be. Awesome's made from love and empathy. Awesome starts with equality. Awesome sounds like harmony. Awesome doesn't leave anybody behind. We're moving up to awesome. awesome, 'cause awesome is a lie. Well, normal was waging endless war. Normal was not what we bargained for. Normal was designed to fail. Normal was a Hollywood fairy tale. Normal couldn't keep everybody fit. We're not going back to normal. Like, let's get awesome instead. Awesome instead. And that's my commitment to you guys as a politician, to find ways to move past normal to what I'm calling, somewhat facetiously in that song, I guess, awesome. But I'll just make another remark about that before I turn it back to you, Lynn. When I get asked, are things getting back to normal, and we're thinking of what can we do post-COVID? COVID's going to be with us for a little longer than we expected. We can't wait. And a lot of us forget, I don't know if you're noticing, but COVID is very plastic with time. Like we lose track of what year is it, what day it is, what's been going on. We forget, I think, that in the before times, in so many areas, we were already in deep crisis. And there are a lot of crises that are interrelated. Sarah mentioned a couple of opioid crises or crime crisis. We have a serious income gap, which I think as long as anyone is being left behind societally, we're not going to thrive. We have a homeless crisis. They're all related. And we have a climate emergency right now. Climate emergency hasn't taken a vacation during COVID. And it in particular, as it was alluded to in the song, it points to that income gap that is a real crisis that I feel too, because look at who's profiting from climate change and the COVID crisis, and look at who's actually creating the climate crisis. It's that now 0.5% of billionaires who are creating the problem and reaping the benefits for them. So there are so many fronts that we need to work on starting now, but I believe that normal is not something we need to strive for. Normal wasn't working. Normal was too often we fell into a colonialist, racist, exclusionary mindset with what we thought was normal. We have to get past that. We have to all work collaboratively to do that, and we have to do it right now. Maybe not right now. How about about 5 o'clock? We're busy right now. Thanks.
Well, James, actually, one of our viewers and someone who's attending this session today, she's given a question. It could be for you, it could be for other panelists as well, but I'll just read it out. From your perspective, what are the key issues for you surrounding mental health in our youth communities? What do you see as being at the forefront? What do you see as being at the forefront?
I can address that. I'm actually the former chair of the Family Mental Health Network in Guelph. And I think, and I'm sure Sarah has programs that would agree with this, it's stigma is the thing we have to deal with first and foremost. And there are a number of different ways to do that. But as long as we find that those with mental health issues or housing issues or poverty issues or anything, if we look at them as other, then we are not serving any of those issues. 1 in 5 people in our country have either experienced personally with mental illness or has a family member dealing with that. So, and Sarah alluded to it, I think too. I'll just mention back to that, or maybe it was Jim or Sharif. If you are having an episode, psychotic episode, and what comes to your door when that 911 call comes, you get a fire brigade, you get an ambulance, you get police, if you're lucky, you get a social worker. It's very overwhelming and not very cost effective. So I think we need to find ways to not only streamline, but bringing those issues, if those with mental health service experience move to the forefront of that, then we're going to be farther ahead too. But to do that, and going back to something Sarah said, we need sustainable funding and an acknowledgement that it is a crisis, and acknowledging how many of our other issues, for instance, the opioid crisis, how many of them are related to mental health issues. We need to take a step back and acknowledge why there's such an increase in mental health issues. It's because of an overwhelming world right now. Things have sped up. There's many things that are uncertain. We can't make things more certain, but we can be more mindful and have more empathy towards those with the mental health issues.
That's amazing. Anya, did that answered your question, I think. Anyone else want to jump in on that at all? Any of our other attendees today? No, I think that's great. James, as far as in yourself as an artist and surviving COVID, as an artist and not getting a chance to perform, I know recently you were able to do a performance. And how odd was that for you? And,
Yeah.
what is that like? Yeah. You can speak to this.
I think anyone in the arts sector right now, and it goes back to something I mentioned earlier, that we were in the arts sector in crisis before COVID, in that, and to look at the big picture, I'm noticing I'm quite an elderly gentleman now. When I started my career, I think more value was placed on our artists. There was more support for them. People now want to get everything for free. They want to listen to music for free. They want to stream it. They want instant access, and that doesn't support artists. So when COVID hit, and I make my living as a touring artist, to make the long way around answering your question, anyone in my industry was really hit hard financially by it, but artistically, it knocked us off our groove. You know what I mean? Like, what do we do instead? Well, you've been through this, Lynn, with work in theater. How do we keep our work going so that it resonates with people and we are still communicating in the way we want to? So online performances is what we mostly turn to. And yet that's pretty abstract. Like I remember doing an online concert and stopping in the middle and going, is anyone actually out there? It's really, so to just last week to get that, we all have large egos in the music industry. So to actually perform a song and getting people standing in front of you, applauding and reacting, I realized, hey, that's why I do that. I think making connections is why I'm in the music business, and it's been hard, very hard to keep those connections going online. We're all looking for ways to move back live, but just as I mentioned with going back to normal, it's not going to look the same anyway because it wasn't working what we call the same.
Amazing, thank you. Any other questions for James? James, I think I wanted to give you a round of applause for the performance, first of all. From one artist to another, I think very necessary to acknowledge that performance. Thank you so much for that. That was awesome. You're such a talented cat, and I really appreciate you contributing as a musician today, but also a knowledgeable citizen and city councilor as well. If there are no other questions, I'll move on to another one. Who would like to go next? Between Jim and Sharif? Who's feeling it?
Sharif, why don't you go ahead?
Sharif, do you mind if I just pull up your bio? Jim was kind enough to just send, and I think it's important for our viewers to kind of get a sense of who you are. You were able to jump into our conversation quite quickly, and if that's okay, I'll just read a little bit of your bio. Thank you so much.
My name is Sharif Sabawi. I'm the MPP for Mississauga Erin Mills. I have been activist in the generally as a community activist and a stakeholder in the Coptic community, the Egyptian background community, Arab speaking community, outreaching to some of the other communities, Arabic speaker and else. Thanks for Mr. Jim have been very proactive with many of the smaller hidden communities who has no voice So I used to communicate with them, trying to be their voice with issues they have in the community and stuff like that. I've been elected in 2018 as a member of provincial parliament, and 2 years ago, year and a half ago, I got chosen as a PAA, parliamentary assistant for the Minister of Heritage, Tourism, Sports and Culture Industries, Ms. Lisa McLeod. And that's again in the same area I like to be involved with, like different communities, multi-diversity, the music industry, the film industry. Being from Peel region get me very active with the police, the Peel police forces, and any activities. We try to support them to make sure that they have what they need to do a good job. Year 2019, I introduced the Egyptian Heritage Month, which is July of every year, to celebrate and get to know more about the Egyptian heritage, either generally or the Canadian Egyptians in Canada, the Canadians who are from the Egyptian origins, and talking about their contributions. What else? I think that's enough introduction. I need to maybe cover for a couple of points. I think non-for-profit organizations have a huge role to play in the community, and we know that because of the COVID, there is some struggling there because people are not having I would say, the mood to get involved in charity or politics or anything because of the COVID mood kind of thing. Everybody's trying to stay home, and people are upset. When they stay home, they are upset. We are upset. Everybody's upset. But again, it's a pandemic, we understand. But again, like the non-for-profit organizations, we know the struggle and we do our best to help. There's some programs from the ministry which we came up with to support the non-for-profit organizations. And I think there's another one might be coming next week or the week after. And you should monitor for that. If the criteria wise applies for your organization, you should apply. And again, like as I'm saying, we know the struggle, we need to help because we believe in the role you do in different aspects of the public life. When I arrived to Canada 26 years ago, somebody from a non-for-profit organization waited for me in the airport and helped me in my first 2-3 days in the country. And I think that's unforgettable, especially when you show up in a country you don't know anybody in. So I think that's more than any government program can do, because they do it from their own hearts. They put their own time. Majority of time, they are volunteers who are interested to serve, not to get paid for. So there's some difference in there when you do things as a volunteer. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep,
Yeah,
we can
absolutely.
hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, very clear. Yep, thank you.
Sorry, I think I got frozen for a few seconds. So I just wanted to praise all the volunteers and people who do work in those organizations. And as a government, member of the government, and even within the discussions on an official basis, we realize the big work, the big role you do, and we appreciate it. So thank you very much.
No, and I think,
And I'm ready to answer any questions if you have any questions for me.
any questions out there, folks?
Yeah, I've got a question. Sharif, you were talking about the 411, 311, 211.
Yep.
Have all the platforms like the 5, 6, 7, 8, have they been taken up? Have you looked at it, if 711 or 811, if they're available?
Yes, I actually had multiple conversations with the CRTC. Everything have been allocated into the 911, 811, 711 611, 211, like all the 3 digits range have been taken. 211 is actually the best choice for that because it's the number which allocated for any
Non-emergency.
public work. So it should be anything mental health, calling some suicidal line and stuff like that. And I think there is very soon there will be a new ruling from CRTC based on one of the federal bills to allocate, I think, 988 for mental health or something like that in North America. So there's in December last year, there was a bill passed and the CRTC is working in 3 digits for the mental health. So yeah, I checked, but anywhere relevant to the number, relevant, it's 922, 910, 912, it doesn't matter. Just the 3 digits is standardized so that people can memorize them easily. That's all. This is the whole concept because people call the 911 because they don't remember anything but 911.
That's interesting. Any other comments, interceptions, and thought you'd like to share? You know, Sharif, I've taught English to newcomers. And so when you were speaking, it spoke to my heart because it really is about those connections. And that's sort of what our conversation has been about shared resources, shared knowledge, shared community, and shared expertise. And making things accessible to newcomers, or even just someone dealing with a mental health issue, making them feel welcome at the table is so very, very important. If you were to try and, for nonprofit organizations, what do you think in your region would be an area of focus for supports? Please and thank you.
I think as Sarah mentioned earlier, there is a lot of domestic violence. Organizations who work with families suffering domestic violence, organizations working with mental health. There's a lot of mental health, special needs groups are really suffering because of COVID because you can't go out, you don't have the camps, you don't have the schools. So those guys are organization work around that area are very welcomed and doing great job. There is newcomers and settlement. Of course, this have been ongoing since I came to the country 26 years ago, and it's going to continue play a very pivotal role in filling some niche markets because when you look into some of the newcomers, I'm not talking about my case, but there's a good percentage of those newcomers. Not only they don't have the connections and the network, they don't have even the language. They don't have the culture aspect of it. They don't know many things they could do by mistake could ruin up their their setup in Canada in the beginning. So those organizations who are from the same background, either ethnically, religiously, any affiliations of any sort, make people feel more comfortable to speak up about their issues and their challenges, and they can do better job than any other type of organizations generally. One of the another area as well is a food bank. Like there is a poverty, increasing poverty in the PL region area. There's lots of families who can't get ends to meet, and food bank people, like the families receiving from food bank or needed to register for the food bank, is increasing like really badly because of the COVID, and even before the COVID. But the COVID, of course, accelerate that because there was lots of families lost their income and they ended up asking for help. So that's another aspect of non-for-profit organizations. There's another type of non-for-profit organizations who work to, for example, supply more donations for Credit Valley Hospital or any aspect of the medical field to help help covering the gap between the needs and what they actually got from different resources. So they help in that, or helping in building some kidney unit or cancer unit or anything of that. So yeah, there's many aspects of non-for-profit organization which work and needed, and they do a great job. And again, like now I will shift my focus again into the Crime Stoppers or Neighbor Watch, because I think the government and the police forces need to continue encouraging this direction, because we can't scale up quickly enough to stand against this violence we see increasing in the streets and in cities and even in houses sometimes. If that answers your question.
Yes, very much so, for sure. Anyone else in our audience or participants, panelists have a question for Shireen?
I just dovetail on what Sharif has said. You're absolutely correct in that the types of crimes and the volume of crimes did not abate because we were in lockdown in a pandemic. And I have a lot of people that'll say to me, it's like, oh, the volume must have dropped. It did not, because those same people are not worrying about abiding a lockdown. So we saw numbers going up, and we were hearing from our police partners that the crimes that were happening, like human trafficking still happening, domestic violence more than they'd seen the year prior, sexual assaults, hate crimes, things like that, where there's a logic there that would say that people are under pressure and it's very unusual times. However, the fact that you're committing these crimes, it's not acceptable during any time. So that's why we've positioned ourselves to say, we need to go after those specific types of crime, and realizing that it's harder to report that directly to the police. And you're absolutely right, Sharif, that our police partners do see Crime Stoppers as, for lack of a better phrase, a tool on the tool belt. Right? It's an additional resource for them. And in times when policing, has a lot going on, whether it's, budgetary or socioeconomic issues with the community, there's a lot to take into account. And we feel very strongly about bringing the information forward as an intermediary. But you're absolutely correct in that the types of crimes, the severity of crimes did not go down at all, simply because of COVID-19.
I think what I'm hearing across the conversation is that we're not going back to normal thinking. I guess there is no, but we're reconfiguring everything as we go. Yeah. Wow. In terms of accessibility and which we were discussing before. Wow. Thank you. Thank you.
I think, Leanne, I have to say something from my prospect as 35 years in technology. I'm IT specialist and IT professor, teaching George Brown Centennial colleges and in the industry for 35 years. In every time things changed, like game changers happens, or the points where the game changed, it never gone back. So not this one, not the other one, not the previous one, not the coming one. When it happened, and it's gonna stay. So working virtualized, like when some people say, oh my God, Zoom, like as a discovery, like, and I said, like, I did like WebEx when I was part of Cisco in 2000. That's 21 years ago. So the technology have been here for many years, but people were reluctant to jump the fence. Once you jump the fence, why you should go back? Like, if the corporate evaluated end of the year and they found that they are doing the same almost productivity business wise, or the revenues or whatever, and the cost gone down by half because you don't have to pay insurance, they don't have to pay gas, they don't have to pay real estate, they don't have to pay for time off because somebody slipped on the ice or whatever and took 2 months long-term vacation, and they figure out just like, so why we should get those all back. Number two, I think there is a realization now in the management level that we can monitor the productivity even if they're working remotely, because there's all kind of gauges now where I can gauge the productivity of the people even if they're working remotely. So the old fashioned management styles that I need to count the heads at 8 o'clock, I need to count the heads as 5 to 5 before they go, is changing. So the game is changing now. And same for education. Like if you look in schools, the people who think that the online education is gonna go, I'm just telling them, you are guys thinking it's not gonna happen. This will never happen, because there will be some parents will still feel paranoid and they feel that it's better to keep my kids in here. So we have to keep the online going, and it's gonna continue growing. It's going one direction, can only grow. So yeah, I agree with you. I hope that we make more benefits of the new setup and try to mitigate what we think that it's a disadvantage of working remotely. Like we need to have maybe more events to meet people face to face, because we don't see them day to day. Now we have to have more events, except instead of once a year we have a conference, maybe we should do it every 3 months. Get everybody on board, all hands meetings, and do what we need to do to build the team, and then go back to remotely working together virtually. But there will be change in the working environment, I would say, or working procedures. Definitely.
Yeah, so working from the bottom up instead of the top down kind of thing, getting that foundation secured. Yeah, wow, thank you so much. That's amazing. Really,
I'll tell you,
really
Sharif, if my daughters were to get into an argument with you about the school, you will get an earful. I have 5 daughters and they're all teachers. Kids need to be in class, they tell me, and socialize. I'm just listening and conveying to what they're saying. My
no.
personal opinion at this matter, at this moment, I'm not going to
Both have to be available, Jim, because I get the same number of emails saying, do you think I'm idiot to put my kids in a class with another 30 kids or 20 kids, and they come home with COVID to me? Like it's a controversial topic, and we have to make the choice for the parents. If they want to keep them online, they can do that. It's available. If they want to send them to school, school is open and welcoming them. So both should be available. And I fight it to keep the online. And myself, I stand it for it. I thought we have to have it as fallback option at any point of time, and make it available for people who don't feel comfortable yet to send their kids to school.
You know, I'm looking at the numbers, the daily numbers, see if I can just change subject. And we see that there's a lot of people out there that are getting COVID-19. And when you look at the people that get it, like today, I think was like over 500, and it was about 430, 450 that were unvaccinated. Now, Sharif, this is something for you to take back to the provincial legislature. We should have a passport, if you want it, as such that if you want to go shopping, you want to enter a store, you have to show proof that you're vaccinated. If you're not vaccinated, then you don't go out. Now that's one. If they don't want to do that, and you're going to say, okay, you know what, privacy issues and my rights and all that stuff. So I am paying, all of us are paying for healthcare. You don't going to get vaccinated? Fine. It's your privilege if you don't want to get vaccinated. You go to the hospital, it's also our privilege to ask you to pay for your hospitalization. Now that, my friend, is maybe something that can get people more vaccinated.
Listen, Jim, first of all, like the last part of your comment can't be, because everybody's entitled for healthcare because of the constitution rights. So we can't stop that.
No, I hear
So
you. But however, it's your constitutional right also to have healthcare, but it's also my constitutional right, because I pay into healthcare, to say, hold on a second, you exercise your constitutional right not to get vaccinated. Hello. But anyways, that's that's above my pay grade at this time.
The passport, I think it might happen anyway, because the federals are going to push for it for all the different.
Now, talking about a federal election, are you ready to door knock starting tomorrow, my friend?
I have
For those of you that are following this
week.
up, you know we're going to have an election starting tomorrow.
Yeah, if I start knocking doors tomorrow, Jim, it's going to be the longest campaign for me, because my election is in June. So that means I'm going to be door knocking from now till.
But you're going to have to door knock for your federal counterpart.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're almost ready to segue in, but just on your other point, I host international students, and I usually meet them in Montreal, of all things, but a colleague I'm working with has just redesigned a program for virtual opportunities, just as we're all speaking. But eventually we'll move forward to in-person again, but that will never go away, as we've kind of been saying, that'll just always be there as an opportunity for them as well, should they not want to travel abroad or not be able to travel abroad, right?
Are you talking about Canadians who are traveling abroad or international students coming to
International
Canada?
participants coming here. So usually every summer or whichever, we would meet them in Montreal. We travel around the area and return back to the University of Guelph. And they would stay on campus there. The past few, we have not been able to do that. But the president has designed a program which is virtual, so they can actually study abroad. But it's not quite the same, is it? You get all those other things in academically, but that in-person experience is always removed, right? So,
Lynn, is one
yeah.
thing to watch Banff from a screen. It's another thing to be in Banff to see it, or up at Georgian Bay where James is now.
Right, or swimming with the moose. Would this be a good opportunity to introduce Jim, everyone? Good, thank you so much. Thank you. I think we're gonna go for it. Do you mind if I read your bio, Jim, just a wee bit?
Make it short.
Oh, right, I will do. Jim is let me see. Honorable Jim Karagianis is a former MP, defender of democracy and human rights. Jim is a former politician for 26 years as a federal member of parliament, 6 years at the City of Toronto as a councillor, currently the principal of GTA Strategies, a lobbying firm. Jim is dedicated to life and public servant, being a public servant. How's that?
Thank you. Sweet and to the point. Well, I want to thank everybody for giving us an opportunity to participate in the panel, and certainly to Sunil and to yourself, Lynn, for moderating. It's a great opportunity for us to kick around some ideas. Being in public life is certainly a calling, and I want to take my hat off to both James and to Sharif for being there. The sacrifices that you make are great. Sharif, I have to say to you that we say, and Lynn, Sarah, we talked about doing Zoom calls and not be there in person. But I have to say, there's something about politicians when it comes to an event and when it comes to a gathering of people. Guess what? It's like a magnet. It draws them out, and it's right there for them to be there. I'm finding, like in the former public life, that meetings and in-person meetings and people, meeting people and talking to people was a great opportunity. And then everybody went from meeting people. I was elected first in 1988, and the biggest thing we had was a fax machine and a computer, that you can do your typing on. To go to a computer where you can see people and do the Zoom calls right now, it certainly has changed the lifespan as we know it. It used to be like you used to have a mobile phone and you only can talk, and it was like the minute was like $1 back in 1988, 90. And now people are moving more into email, into social media and all that stuff. Life has changed, and life as we knew it. And maybe it's a good thing, but also the personal touch was something that the interaction that we're going to start missing. So as we move forward, I think that Canada is in the right position, and especially here in Ontario and in our province of Ontario, that we can show the rest of the world what it's like to be diverse in a society. It's like to be people of different backgrounds that came to Canada with like $50 in your pocket or $100 in your pocket, and somebody met you at the airport, or you had a friend that came to pick you up, and to feel that, to have an opportunity to live it, and to move it backward to the other countries. I think that through multiculturalism in Canada, we have an opportunity to exercise building a great community in a great country. And I was born in the city of Athens, and Athens is where the bedrock of democracy was. This is where democracy was found. But I have to tell you, democracy is best practice here in Canada. And of course, as we go to an election tomorrow, I think people will be getting out to exercise their democratic rights and vote for the people of their choice. I think that we have a lot to offer. I think that there's a lot of learning that we still have to do, and I still that we have to be patient. I don't care what color you are, if you're Caucasian, if you're African, if you're South African, if you are South Asian, wherever you come from, we have to be patient with each other, and we have to not only talk one way and say to you, listen, let me tell you about what it's like to be a particular ethnicity or particular color. No, you also have to listen to what they have to tell you. And a lot of people only talk one way. They only try to say what they're about and in their background, and they tune it out from others. They definitely tune us from others. So I think it behooves politicians, present and past, to learn about the different communities, to learn about what people are, and then through social media and through activists and through even, like shows like that we have here today, to introduce the different cultures and say, look, where are you from? What background do you have? I mean, if I was to tell you about, Sharif, can I get a little personal, if I may? You're muted, my friend. Sharif is a Coptic Christian, and if you were to go to Egypt, Coptic Christians are persecuted almost on a daily basis. There was a time when Coptic Christians, the people went into Coptic churches and they were shooting people, and that's a background that Sharif and that he brings to Canada. And when you only hear that, it only happens to one particular sector of our community. No, it happens everywhere. There's crazes all over the world, and this is where we working together have to make sure that we reach out to each other and try to understand each other and move forward. A lot of people only come to the table, say their piece, and then they shut automatically, as soon as they speak, they shut themselves out and they're not listening. Folks, yeah, you can speak, but if you only speak only in order to be heard, guess what? I'm also going to speak up in order for me to be heard, and we will be speaking like parrots. So if you're speaking to be heard, do me the courtesy and also listen to when I'm speaking for you to hear me, and I will do the same thing for you. That's one lesson that we have to take away from today. And now I'm going to do a little bit of self-promoting, Sarah, if I can. My organization does, we do funding proposals, and we look after non-for-profit organizations. Of course, we work with a lot of organizations, Moxa being one of our folks that we work out with. And if I can be of any help to you, please reach out. And there's a lot of funding. Now, I have to tell you this. I was a member of Parliament. I was not aware of this, but now that I'm a lobbyist, there's a funding proposal comes out from provincial, federal, or your local government almost on a daily basis. And if people that are looking to get funds from the government, guess what? It's so easy to navigate. It's so easy to do it that the only thing that you got to do is either find somebody that does proposal writing or do it yourself. Make sure that you are. But if you're a non-for-profit organization, there's so much funding out there, you'd be surprised and shocked.
Jem, I would say a lot of availability, but it's not easy. Okay, just to mention, it's not easy. Government give money. Yes, there's lots of grants available for many types and verticals, but there is rules and there's procedures. So you have to follow the procedures to be able to get access to that. But the availability, I do agree with you. There's tons of funds there to be making use of for all purposes in the community building, but it's not easy. Just like this, what I hear from all the organizations who complain to me that they didn't get the money.
Look,
it's not easy.
I put my phone number and my email on there. Anybody wants any help, by all means, reach out. It's not easy, but it's not hard to navigate. I didn't say that there's money to be on the street there, but it is available. And I'm just now like James. I'm not going to sing, but I will tell you a joke. A guy comes to Canada and he figured that everybody money's on the street. So the guy arrives in Halifax. It was Friday night. He gets off the boat, goes down the pier. He looks at $20 bill on the sidewalk there. He kicks it, says, "I'm not going to start working until Monday." So he was waiting until the weekend to start picking up the money. like money's not easy, but folks, I mean, like we have to do whatever we can to help our nonprofit organizations and to move things forward. And I want to thank the provincial, the federal, and all the levels of government that they come up with funding and they come up with different scenarios in order to assist the nonprofit schemes and stuff. Thank you. That's it for my part.
That's amazing. I wonder if we have a comment from any of our other panelists at the moment for Jim.
I think it's a great example of networking and connectivity, and how people, even though it's frustrating times, that people are willing to reach out and help each other. And if there's a positive, a glass half full scenario to take out of this, is partially from what James has said and partially from what Jim has said, is that if we're caught up on how things were done in the past, we're missing an opportunity for the future. And there's people willing to help us get to where we need to be. So thank you. And I really appreciate the opportunity to connect and meet with all of you today.
Pleasure is mine also with you. And certainly to meet people from the good city of Guelph. Used to have friends. I believe, I'm not sure if she's still in Guelph. Brenda Chamberlain, does it ring a bell?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
She used to be the MP, and then oh God, who replaced her? The lawyer that never ran again. Yeah, just good friends down there.
Hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. Tony, yeah, great individual.
So I might maybe add one comment here is as a government, we are not specialized in any aspect. Like we are from different aspect and walk of lives. So we might not understand the details of any specific part of your businesses or your organization, your activity. So I always tell organizations who come to meet with me and try to explain to us, I think it's the big role for you guys is to tell us what your challenges are. Not only that, but you recommend what do you think the solution, because you are the expert of the matter experts, and you can tell us what's your recommendation to solve that challenge. Then we can look into it from the government lens and see, can that be done or cannot be done? What's the consequences of this? What's the hazards of that? Or what's the effect in like across affecting in other areas of the industry or whatever? But if we didn't hear from anybody, we assume that everything is running fine. So again, like if you don't tell me what's exactly the problem, I will assume that there's no problem. So this is what I always tell the different organizations: speak up, not to bug us, but to make us aware of the issue, because majority of time from 70,000 feet upstairs, we don't see those details. So thank you very much.
That sounds like good words of wisdom there. Take a moment to shine the spotlight on the specifics, and therefore there's another way to bridge the gaps. Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Anybody else who's attending today who would like to make a comment or a question for any of our panelists as we're wrapping up our conversation today? Moksha Canada Foundation, Diversity Festival. Anyone here? I know our founder is in the background, and we really just want to take a moment to shine light on him as we're all talking about today. We couldn't be here without him and Moksha Canada Foundation. So thank you to Sunil Channon for allowing this conversation to happen, to Moksha Canada, to our guest panelists today, our experts where we're learning and growing together, teaching me along the way, teaching our communities along the way. And that really is what it's about. It's celebrating us as Canadian citizens, celebrating us as international global citizens. So thank you for being with us today, and please follow us on social media, Moksha Canada Foundation. My name is Lynn McEntee. I've been your moderator. Little shout out for next week. We have another panelist for understanding and accessing support for mental health. That'll be our third diversity panel discussion. So please join us next week as well. Many thanks to all. Thank you for joining us. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks. Great to meet everyone.